Welcome to the Product House, where two friends nerd out about products. Hello, Kiet. How are you today?
I'm good, thank you. Nice dewy morning, about to be 40 degrees here in Melbourne, so
40 degrees.
lovely.
Really?
Yeah.
Oh my god. I can hear the birds like very relaxing and very happy behind you. So
Oh, it's just Melbourne's so weird, right? It was like 18 degrees the other day, and now it's going to be like just ridiculously hot. But we do these things in the morning, and it's a nice time of the morning.
yeah,
How you how you coping with the early mornings, Charlotte?
to be honest, this morning struggled a tiny bit because it's the public holiday, and then we have been kind of wake up and discuss this topic in the past 2 days as well. Basically, every single day in this long weekend. But I'm very very excited about today's topic though.
Yes. We've been talking about doing this for a while, right? And this is for those that you are listening. We've started recording this in January, and back in December, Charlotte and I had the pleasure of kind of meeting up in person over Christmas.
It's not
and
like we never met each other before, by the way. It's just because it's
yeah.
Christmas. It's
Yeah. So you and your husband had spent some time in Melbourne.
finally
Uh,
seeing like Kia's kind of a greenhouse and all his kind of amazing fruits and in the backyard.
Yeah. So, we were just nerding out about product, and we kind of had a stroke of innovation around a new way to kind of think and approach product, because we started talking about systems thinking, right? And this is the focus of this episode.
Because that's kind of where our background is. This is like for a lot of audience, probably I don't know if you remember, because both of us kind of connect before because of our previous my previous agile coaching career, and then and both of us working for a consulting firm. So we just really be nerds about kind of system, and then so every single time when we start talking about almost any topic, it doesn't even have to about product, and then we always kind of end up somewhere apply some sort of system thinking framework. So we actually, because of this particular the conversation we have, we actually decide to put together a little bit talk, and also even put together a submission for a conference this year, just to practice a little bit about our thinking in this area. The podcast audience, I guess, to be a first kind of a group of the people to hear some of our still emerging and developing kind of thoughts. So we'd like to shape this kind of framework and idea with you guys as well.
Dear listeners, this is where we tell you that all points made in this podcast are personal opinions only and not associated with our work or any other organisations. We might change some details of our stories to protect the privacy of the individuals and organisations involved. So Charlotte, when you talk about your thoughts on systems thinking, what does it actually mean to you?
System thinking is something I feel like it's kind of interesting things to define them, because it almost like it's defined by the name, like already the words already. But in my opinion, system thinking, it really is a way of thinking. It's how we're actually approaching the problems with a fuller kind of perspective, and or trying to consider, I guess, all level of complexity relate to the particular kind of issues instead of just the most obvious one. If I give you an example, a kind of non-product example as a start, I guess, is for example, if there's a cruise and hitting into an iceberg on the water, the most obvious kind of I guess mind people will kind of go direct to is about, it's the person who's driving the cruise. The problem basically, they didn't notice about the iceberg, they hit the iceberg, they're starting to kind of putting the blame on the people who are driving. However, there's actually a lot of consideration in that particular system that may not be considered in that situation. There is also about the overall culture about the cruise, why other people in the cruise didn't realize it and informs the driver immediately. They might be related to the equipment who are using to detect the iceberg. Where's the supply of these equipments? When was the last time it's actually been fixed? If it hasn't been checked, why it hasn't been checked? And it's also relating to the overall, I guess, oceans and the weather conditions on that day, and then maybe prevent them to seeing that. But why they have that particular kind of like weather condition, like they may relate to the global warming, they may be relating to some of the government policies, they're relating about the cruise traffic and servicing on the oceans. So there's actually a lot of different layer of the why that particular like incident happened. And generally, we like to jump to the most obvious one, but you will realize after we start talking about all the other, I guess, particular player in the system, you might actually make the very, very different conclusion, different decisions afterwards.
Yes. Well, by default, the captain gets the blame, right?
Probably captain still get the blame in that situation, but still, like if you're thinking about that, there will be very different solution. Maybe you want to put in place in the future to prevent that happen, right?
I really like that. Thank you for sharing that kind of mental model.
What about you, Kiet? What's your definition about system thinking?
Yeah, it's interesting, right? Because there's a very clear distinction kind of before I started reading into it and learning about it versus after. And, you know, I was introduced to the idea quite a long time ago, but I always thought it was just like, oh, you just have to think very hard. or you got to kind of think deeper about a problem. But I didn't know that there were, at the time, frameworks and tools to help you kind of build a mental model. And once you have those mental models in your mind, it just makes so much easier to kind of approach any sort of problem. So the ones that come to mind are like Canavan by David Snowden or Wardley Mapping, Simon Wardley. But the short of it, I think your example explains it really well, right? It's kind of think about a problem, the context of the problem, and the context of that context.
Correct. Yeah, instead of like there's a lot of different players, and then there's a whole ecosystem about a particular problem. Are you only thinking about the problem, I guess, by itself, or did you thinking about everything around the problems as well? Well, then that's a really good definition. But while we're talking about system thinking here with this particular podcast, why do you think system thinking is particularly important for product practitioners?
Yeah. So I think it comes down to like, and I'm generalizing here around product managers, but in most cases, if you work as a product manager within an organization, your sphere of influence is kind of at a certain layer. And so to a certain extent, you're being asked to optimize for a particular KPI or particular goal, right? And you're kind of, you have to make product decisions and optimize for that. And I guess what you're trying to do is sub-optimizing for a local maximum. So, you know, if you're pushing your product to the left of your industry and your whole industry is moving right, what is that going to be beneficial, or is that going to be harder for you as a
what's
product
left
manager?
And right? What's in left and right?
Yeah, it just in terms of the overall flow. So let's say, for example, if you're, I'll pick a very general example. If you're building a new feature and you're building it so that people have to install it on a floppy disk, whereas your whole industry is moving towards the cloud, you have to you can either blindly kind of continue what you always do, or you can kind of go with the flow, with the trend of the industry, right?
Just like AI world, everyone's AI agents at the moment. It would be stupid if you are not playing with the AI agents, and then
yeah, and you know, I'll pick an example that's already proven, rather than one that's kind of more speculative. Not to say that, you know, the trend of AI is speculative, but
okay,
it's easier to work with the flow rather than against the flow. But what it does is it allows you to take bets, right? Look at your industry, look at your company, global trends, and say, you know, what are the flows, and where do I kind of strategically play to move with the flow so that it helps me?
That really makes sense. Do you have any specific kind of example that relate to your stories about how you apply kind of system thinking to helping you advance in your product management kind of role as well?
Yeah, the one I quite clearly thinking is North Star metrics as an example, right? And when you're kind of setting your kind of key KPIs that you're targeting as a product, systems thinking framework is a really good way to help you kind of analyze and just lay out what are the driving factors you want to target. So in this example, I did product management for a marine vetting company, and it's quite a dense topic. And for those that don't have 3 months to kind of deep dive into marine vetting, essentially it's assurance services that when you need to send, let's say, 300,000 kilograms of coal from one port to another, you basically use this service to say, for my goods, does the particular cargo ship and crew meet the needs of what I need to do, right? Relatively straightforward, but they could be safety factors, they could be greenhouse gas emission factors, whatever it is. And we were asked to kind of re-platform it, but also help it grow, right? And I guess when with a lot of product managers, the default position is, if you want to grow, let's go top line growth, right? Do more advertising, grow your slice of the pie,
before you move up, how do these companies make money? Do they by selling insurance to the end customers of these of the supplier of this coal, or do they from the cruise company? Like what's their revenue model like for them?
No, so essentially they provide a service to insure. So it's an assurance service, right? And so when you engage them and tell them your requirements, they turn around and say, yes, I have validated those requirements.
Okay, so in that situation, it's the coal company. The coal company, if they want to supply coal from one place to the other place, so in this situation, the coal company will be the customer for the marine vetting company. Okay.
Yeah, correct. And so they had a product that was relatively aged, and they wanted to kind of move it to the cloud, online, et cetera, and kind of take on more of a software as a service model. And what they wanted to do was, for them to grow their business in the shortest amount of time, what we did was we actually kind of looked at, instead of going to the default of just top line growth, we had a look at all their the entire value chain, and actually what was the key limiter of growth, right? And for them, it was actually the supply side was the key limiter. And what I mean by that is, for you to do a what they call a vet, essentially have someone kind of vet that your requirements meet the ship meets the requirements of your needs, you need someone who's like a 20-year plus experience seaman to kind of validate it. And there are only so many of them in the world, right? And so the quickest way to grow is within that industry, within that context, is actually to what does the customer actually care about? They don't care that you could do more, but they care that you turn it around quicker. And the biggest factor in slowing things down is actually just the communication between the customer and the person doing the vet, right? And so what we did was, when we kind of understood the landscape, we optimized so that we could have kind of optimized for a lot of things, but the two things we optimized for was how much a feature reduced the amount of communication back and forth between the two users, and two, how much paperwork it stripped out of the existing system.
To optimize for the speed, basically the overall experience, efficiency.
Yes. And so, if you increase the throughput by 30%, then you increase your... there's way more demand than there was supply, so you increased it by 30%, you increase your top line by 30%.
That's very interesting. That's very, very good example. Thank you so much for sharing that as well.
And How about you, Charlotte? Keen to know your thoughts.
All right. My thoughts around why system thinking is important to PM. It's an interesting journey as well. To be very honest, system thinking only become like I only know system thinking is something that is not a default stand. Like after I become the PM, because before I become the PM, I was working in a kind of as a organization coach and consultant. That's kind of like the way of thinking. It's just how we've been trained all the way through. But then so to be very honest, there was a period of time I was actually struggle a little bit around how do I apply all this system thinking and mental model into the PM world. But now with everything happened in the last few years, with the pandemic happening, with a lot of global kind of tension build up, like with I guess AI starting coming up, I started to realize this is actually more and more system thinking is actually more and more relevant to PM, and also all the other kind of like I guess development type of role as well as like before. Because I think number one is product manager basically we continuously like dealing with really really complicated and complex kind of problems, and then and sometimes most of the time the cause and effects are really not obvious, because everything we do exactly like the example they're just providing as well, right? So top margins is relating to almost everything. It's relating to the whole complete system, complete like process efficiency. And then a lot of the product pricing is not just relating to the success of the product, particular feature. If people like a particular feature, it relates to everything, relate to the overall macro trends, policies, I guess this is all the way going up, but then you literally go into individual, like a particular behavior in your organizations and the other teams kind of performance, and then basically it linked with everything. So I guess it really requires the PM to spend some time, apply this system thinking to be able to find the true root cause around that, because it's not easier. It's really not obvious if you're using your like a kind of instinct to try to resolve the problem, just like iceberg situation. You'll find the captain, but you will miss everything else in the whole overall system. And the other thing I found that the things that relate to this particular topic into my head is the favorite book we like to reference in this podcast, the Thinking Fast and Slow. So in the book,
such a good book.
Yeah, it is a really good book. It is actually something that I read multiple times. Every single time when I read it, I get something new out of it. But of course, the most classic model in the book is tell you about there's a system 1, system 2, and our brain is actually very lazy. We always like to jump with system 1 to resolve all the problem. But the system 2 is actually the one that is a rational kind of brain, can help you analysis everything. So I feel like there's two factors here. Number one is system thinking. I believe is a system 2 kind of way of thinking. It requires a lot of effort for you to waking up to say, hey, let's using a system thinking and then instead of your knee-jerk reactions in your system 1. However, product manager is a super busy role. You are in that role all the time. A lot of audience is in that role. It's firefighting mode all the time. Everything kind of always, there's always something happening, or there's always more fire everywhere. You actually will kind of be more comfortable in your default system 1 kind of model most of the time, because you just want to quickly get rid of the fire instead of pulling yourself back to the system 2 model. So the problem for doing that, because then you actually can survive, especially as a junior PM, you can survive. You're even being kind of rewarded by continue using system 1 to resolve all these problems, because that's a symptom you are resolving. You look super efficient in your work. But then what's the problem for continue doing that instead of applying a little bit deep thinking about your system 2 kind of muscle? Is number one, is we mentioned you never solve the real problem. You're always solving the symptom. You always stay in the surface. Number 2 is you will realize sometimes the more you delay about solving this root cause, you're solving more of these problems, this small fire. Yeah. You're building bigger problem later on. And
so much truth in that.
Yeah, and then you are just going to see more and more small problem later on as well. You just continue to have, you solve one problem, you have 3 new problem coming out. And then you just continue to realize, I'm just exhausting, burn out. You say, why is it so hard? My job is so hard. Your job doesn't have to be that hard if you spending a little bit of time and forcing yourself to using system 2 in that context. So,
and it's almost like building a muscle, right?
100%.
If you haven't if all you know is kind of firefighting, you become very good at it, right? And just carving out that time to just think.
Oh, 100%. And even, and that's, to be very honest, that's really hard. Even like for people like you and me, like we probably learn a lot about systems thinking, read a lot about it. But one kind of, I think there's, I did kickboxing for a little bit. And then,
I'm liking where this story goes.
yeah, I do kickboxing for a little bit. And then, we do a lot of these, there's always plan. There's always a combinations, everything. My teacher basically say, you know what, Charlotte, everyone has a plan until the fix on your face. Essentially, so that's kind of like systems thinking. We all have all these tools, but when the fire like coming up, the immediate reaction is definitely not going to be, hey, what was my plan? So that's why it is exactly like we say, it's a muscle. It's a kind of the first step, I guess. The training to yourself is like, okay, let's have a stop and have a think. There's probably a better way to solve that instead of default into the whole firefighting mode. I guess that's my view.
So, how did your personal journey kind of start with systems thinking, right? Because I think my story is kind of one of laziness, but
no, tell me about your laziness, because I kind of mentioned a little bit of my one. It's like it's just completely. I wanted to hear a bit more about yours because my story is not very interesting around systems thinking.
Do you know what what it is like? You and I both kind of done our rounds in the kind of coaching space, right? And within those circles, they do kind of talk about frameworks like Canavan and systems thinking. And when I first kind of heard about it, this was kind of probably mid 2010s. It was like, oh yeah, cool, systems thinking. That's what smart people do. I'll come around to it, right? And I think it was probably 2 years after I kind of heard about Canavan when I was like finally considered reading up about it.
Wow, is that a mind-blowing moment when you actually?
Oh, it was so much, and like there was a couple of attempts as well because it is quite a dense topic. But what it took was just sitting down and watching of David Snowden explain systems thinking on YouTube. And that just like, I think he explained it in the terms of a
global warming kind of context, isn't it?
No, a kid's party.
Oh, okay.
And
I thought that would be resonate for you. You've been to a lot of kids' party.
Yeah, well, that's exactly what kind of got me across the line, right? But yeah, it was kind of listening to him talk about it, and it was like, oh wow, okay, every problem in the world can be, everything in the world can be kind of classified in one of four systems of simple, complicated.
Well, if you listen to him
chaotic,
carefully,
right?
I think Dave basically is very big about this. Not I can definitely it's not a classification framework.
Yes.
It's a sense making framework.
Yes, and right. Yes, and.
Yes, yes.
But yes, that was really an eye opener for me, and it was like a lot of problems are solved with the wrong context in mind. That was pretty cool.
Yeah, that's definitely the aha moment. Canavan is like the one that really resonate, to be honest. But then there's something that you say there, it does remind me a little bit of the journey. Like we have very similar journey, right? But the only thing is you have the mind-blowing moments, like when you describe your journey. I actually didn't have that until until I lose it, basically.
Gradual.
No, it's because I think similar to you. But I went to I did a Bachelor of Commerce. So for me, learning 5 why, root cause analysis, pastel, that's like literally, that's my degree. They teach me that for literally for 3 years. And
I did too. I just didn't remember any of it.
Oh, really? Exactly. Well, that's the thing. I didn't appreciate how useful they are at that point of time. I do the 3 years, and later on I went to consultancy, for another, on and off, basically for overall probably 6-7 years overall in that kind of a consulting space. And then we learn about similarly Canavans and Simon Wardley. Wardley map is the one that I have so many attempts to learn that, and I struggle it so many times. But then it's just a lot of uncasual loops analysis. We basically go through all these tools. I have this tool set very very early on for my career. But I guess during the time I know to using it because I've been asked to using that to resolve analysis my clients' problems or like a like system problem, but I don't appreciate how useful they are until I guess I lose them, like in a way, because during the time, a lot of time I feel like a lot of framework is holding a mirror for you. They don't resolve the problem to you. There's a period of time you're just like, just tell me. So just tell me what should I do here. Even I hear this feedback for some of the clients at that time to say, okay, great, I understand my value chain. I understand every single you're mapping here. I understand your orderly map. So what's your recommendation to me? What should I do? And then sometimes that's a very hard question for consultant or for coach to answer, because a lot of that is ideally all these tools will provide you the best information for you. At the end of the day, is for you people like to hold on the mirror for you to have all the information to make the best decisions that make sense to yourself, to your organization, and your teams. So I didn't appreciate that. So I was like, well, a little bit resistance in here, a little bit waste of time until become the PM, and then I stopped using all these tools, and I started to go into, as I mentioned, system one model, firefighting, tunnel vision, try to solve my world, and I get stuck continuously. I said, why I get stuck?
Yeah.
And I can't move forward. Okay, great. It will be great this time, isn't it, to have a look at the overall system and overall mirror to take me out, changing a new perspective to try to solve this problem. Then I realized, actually, they are very powerful too. They're really powerful too.
I just noticed like the exact contrast to your situation, which was so I studied marketing, right? And I started off my career in kind of marketing roles. And what I really did not enjoy about junior marketing roles was how much of a systems one job it is. It's purely just getting stuff onto a calendar and churning stuff out.
Wow.
And actually, that was the main reason I kind of pivoted from marketing, which was quite interesting.
So interesting. Yeah, we are like people from two sides of the world, and I wish we actually end up in the middle, and then still with the. But I feel like both of us probably still bringing the kind of the knowledge and the previous kind of experience into this. That's what make it interesting.
Yeah, but it's getting that first step, getting your head around that kind of mental model. That's the hardest part, right? But
well, on that note, actually, I would be interested to know, like, what would be your advice? How to think a bit more systematically, like, what would be your kind of advice? I heard you developed the whole model and the whole map around it.
Yeah, it's that time, isn't it, to introduce the kind of that mental model. So the strike of genius that Charlotte and I kind of when we were kind of talking about it over the Christmas break was I had this kind of picture in my mind, and for those who've kind of know me, I just kind of think in pictures, right, and colours, and so it's like
useful skills.
You've got your product manager in the middle, right? So picture a upside down pyramid with 5 layers, and you've got the product manager in the middle. And when you're when you're a product manager or kind of anyone in an organization, you kind of have to work with your particular sphere of influence, and everything within that sphere of influence you have, I guess, agency over to a lesser or large extent, and then everything outside of your sphere of influence is you kind of have to take as a given, right? An example is you're building a chat product, but within that, in your tech industry, there's a lot of redundancies. You can't really do anything about it. As a global trend, people are kind of moving towards mobile, as an example, right? Some things you have to take as a given, some things you can influence within that sphere of influence, right? So you're a product manager, and what you could do is kind of influence the purpose, vision, mission, objectives, and the strategy, right? How do you kind of go about where do you play? How do you win? What are the people, processes, and tools you need in place to win that, right? But outside of that kind of immediate product layer, you have a choice. You can either kind of play up into kind of influencing more within your organization. If you're a startup, great. You are the organization, but then also product managers don't exist as silos, right? You could influence down into your team as well. And so, it's the context of the context. So going up, your organization sits within a macro environment, whether that's your industry, your geography, country, state, whatever it is, or kind of more global trends. And then kind of playing down, your team is made up of additional contexts of individuals, whether that be yourself or other members of that team as well. So that's kind of the model that's shaping up in our mind.
I might add a little bit additional context there because I have, during the discussions with Kiet, and as I mentioned, this is a kind of emerging framework. Every single time when we talk about it, there's always new kind of thought coming out. So how I kind of read around looking down and going up, how I interpret about this framework, if you can just continue to imagine the pyramids that Kiet described, is generally like a product is the default stand because that's where we operate at. We are product leaders. We have a very, very comfortable toolkits in our pocket. That's our product vision, that's our roadmap, that's our strategy, that's our kind of customers. So we have all of these kind of when things going on, when the boat's on fire, the first things we're thinking about it is the product because that's the one, as what Kia mentioned, we have most of the influence. However, there's a few other things we also feel quite comfortable around, right? It's a people who are working on this product. So I think here expand that to a little bit about a team, but then I think the immediate influence you will have around when you're looking down in this situation is your team, it's the people who are working on this product. And there is also a lot of different type of kind of framework and tool tips and toolkits and thoughts and science and arts relating to your team dynamic. And a lot of them you may feel like it's out of your control because that's one thing I realized as a PM. I hear this multiple times. It's actually not my job to managing my team. My job is managing product. I'm not managing the team. If you have problems about the team dynamic, when people come, please go to the people manager. Please go to the scrum master. I actually feel like that's a very dangerous mindset as well, because just like if you're thinking about a system, team is actually really, really important part of your product. They are the people. Like people is what kind of pull you together. Then you continue going down, which is the individual. For me, I actually thinking, if you're thinking about the whole pyramid, what are the things that people neglected sometimes the most is actually the top and bottom of this pyramid, which is your individual, and your macro environment. Because people will sometimes still remember you're looking after the team a little bit, looking after the organization, because that's something you still have some sort of regardless where you are sitting in your organization, you still have some, I guess what they call, you will still realize them exist because you are still going to meet them. But individuals, sometimes you forget how important it is to helping yourself, motivate yourself to continue funding the whole purpose, to provide yourself creating an environment of autonomous for yourself, for your teams, and provide the whole opportunity to mastering your craft in that situation. So individual, a lot of people, when they're managing product, they forget about looking after themselves. So that's why a lot of, these product management talk and the conference, you realize that actually there's a lot of them teaching people how to manage your calendar while you have the deep thinking time, finding the purpose. That's actually quite important because have a self-care of your individual. Only if you are motivated, visionary, be able to think big in the good places, you will be able to lead your team. You will be able to build a good product. So I actually thinking is quite important to looking at the whole kind of individual side as well. And very similarly, this is looking down with Kiet's kind of the pyramid he just described there as well, right? But then if you're looking up, why there's another things that a lot of PM forget to do is we're in the very busy kind of environment. We have our own product. Generally, that means it's one product. You have a team. You belong to one team. You're focusing on that. But then if you're thinking about it, there's overall, what's happening with your overall organization, how they're doing in the current industry. So it's a very, very, I think there was a saying that Kia mentioned earlier on before around, are you swimming along the tide or are you swimming against it? So one of the examples you probably will see these days is a lot of PM have asking for funding. They realize it's very difficult to asking for funding. They say, well, I literally showing the same 6 months roadmap and then my KPI and my metrics and going to my organization asking for funding. I get it every year, while this year I don't get it. Well, if you have a look at where your organization are and are they ready to commit to this amount of the investment, 12 months investment for something. Like, are they in a position that when you look showing this number, they're ready to commit? So by understanding that overall system about where your organization, where the environment, industry currently are, will probably changing your approach. You may decide to make a different approach. Like at the moment, I'm changing approach to instead of showing them 3, 6 months, 12 months, 3 years plan, I'm showing them what's the most biggest two bet I'm going to make about this product and what are the ROI is going to bring to for the immediate like firms and the teams that were using these. So it make it a bit more less intimidating as well. But yeah, I just want to put in a little bit additional kind of context for this pyramid around how they can be using as a map, as a good reminder around the different kind of a layer of complexity in the I guess the product that you're working on. There is the teams, there's individual, there's definitely organization and macro environments there as well.
Yeah, and it's really interesting, right? Because Charlotte, you and I, as we're kind of talking through the model itself and it's firming up in our mind, like it even shows up in our own biases, right? When we spoke about this, I was super keen and excited about talking about how does a product exist in an organization which exists in a macro environment, and then for you, your what got you excited was kind of the team and individuals kind of empowering them to kind of bring your product to the next level. But the other way that we found it very useful is also when we're talking about a particular topic, just clarifying which layer we're actually talking about. And there's so many topics we can kind of cover and just a lot of juicy kind of stuff we can talk through. So that's why we thought, okay, this can't just be a one episode thing. We will kind of talk through more detail.
Yeah, and then also there's another thing we're talking about this before we kind of introduce about some of the blog and other projects we're probably doing in the background as well. Is that's one thing Kiet say that is really important there is different when you're looking at this map. You were probably starting to see different things coming out of it. Some people were focusing a little bit more about teams and individual. Some people focusing a bit more about product itself. Some people focusing a bit more about macro. Some people focusing about organizations. But again, as I mentioned before, most of the system thinking tools itself is almost like a map, like a mirror. You take you everyone reading the map differently. Everyone have a different places you want it to be. So one thing that I probably would encourage, I would love to hear the audience how people actually interact with this system, because there will be new things you are going to discover about yourself, where you are, I guess, in this map and where you want to go to. And then at least just some of the key elements, I guess we want to remind you to have a think about it when you consider about product. It's not only just product. There's all these different elements around it as well. So hopefully everyone will have fun and find out a little bit about, I guess, where you are in this dynamic of the 5 dynamic of the systems, and then and let us know as well.
Yeah, and I think to your point, as individuals, your sphere of influence will grow the more senior you become and work through an organization, right? And in the case of a startup, you are the organization, but as your organization itself grows, you can kind of start to influence the macro environment as well. So super interesting. Explain it to
we are writing a Medium blog around it, but however, because we haven't finishing it when we're recording this episode, so we're a little bit hesitated to promise you guys what we can put in there, but there will be something, and to
it's a promise
about all these thoughts.
It's a promise.
Yes, so it will be something for you guys to looking at this model and a little bit kind of deeper analysis about some of these topics there as well. And as I mentioned, hopefully at that time we're also figuring out a little bit more about social media strategy as well. So we would love to hear a little bit more about how you guys actually are using these tools in your life as well.
Yeah.
Maybe I will. Sorry.
Oh, I was going to say, Charlotte, as we kind of wrap up, do you have any advice to people who want to
I was going to ask the question for you to answer that, but okay, I can.
Oh, God.
All right, that's okay. Let me have a think about it. So it's a question about the kind of actionable kind of advice for people to pick up for system thinking. I have something very tactical.
Yeah.
I have a few tactical advice for people to do, because I just thinking about what's the most easy thing to do. So number one, bring a pen and pencil, notebook with you everywhere. And then that's actually one of my best advice. That's how I start with a thinking system, because at the moment, everything, when people ask me a question, I try to answer them straight away, and that's very me. That's very short way. And then I actually bring notebook everywhere, including interview, client meetings, team meeting, workshop, because I've realized the moment when I start to join like some of these very, very basic, just very basic system map, or like the cost loop or analysis, or just writing down some of the scenario that around me, it forced me into system two thinking. It gives me a little bit more kind of thinking times, more information coming out. So I think the notebook and the pen is something so important to me. And then another very tactical things I want to probably share with the audience is about blocking deep thinking time, as we mentioned, because if you don't allocate time for you to think systematically, it just won't happen. Unfortunately, it's just like going to gym. You kind of just have to force yourself. No matter how much you talking about I wanted to go to gym, unless you actually go into the gym and have some dedicated time to practice your muscle, there just won't be a muscle. Your muscle just won't be built. So you just have to block every week. Block 3 hours deep thinking time. No meeting, no firefighting. Using the time to working on something strategically for you, for your team, for your organizations. That will be super beneficial. And I also have one last one for you. It's very tangible and tactical again as well. Is find a friends and mentor who like system thinking. If you are new to system thinking, find someone who are good at it. I feel very lucky to have Kiet and this podcast to have opportunity to chat about this kind of thing. So I feel like if I don't have someone like Kiet in my life, like probably wouldn't. Like this, I probably will lose these skills as well, because it's actually quite important to have someone who are interested in this area, and then talking a little bit more, and then helping you to see a little bit system when you're meeting the problem, you're talking to other person. They might provide you a new perspective there as well, right? So,
Thank you, Charlotte. The respect is mutual, and thank you for bearing with me. You don't understand for someone who's super nerdy about this stuff when you want to bring it up in conversations and people's eyes just glaze over, and it's just super disappointing, and so it's so nice to have someone who like literally I'm trying to kind of talk to my wife about systems thinking, and she's like, no, not again.
do you think
No.
there might be not like talking to family member about system thinking may not be the kind of best way to start?
Well, you've got to choose your battles, but
So what would be your
but she's not
advice?
the only one. Definitely watch like David Snowden's video on YouTube. It's just and his dry Welsh sense of humor is just like amazing. So it's really entertaining video, and you'll get a lot out of it. That's
Make
one.
sure you put the link into the show note later on as well.
Yes, totally. Two, definitely have time to reflect and feedback, like you said, Charlotte. But also next time kind of someone asks you to do something or shoot for a goal, it's I think you mentioned it, right? It's 5 whys, like why. Think about the context of what they've asked you, and what it is you're actually trying to achieve for the organization. So does it actually align with your company's overall direction and KPI? The people who you rely on and depend on to deliver on that particular outcome or objective, are they also on the same page? Does achieving it actually help them? Or does it actually go against their KPIs, right? If you're working with a customer service team, as an example, if you reduce queue times, does it reduce that particular customer service team's yes, it improves their KPIs, but does it mean that they would lose headcount? You have to kind of think about it in a couple of layers, right? And make sure your stakeholders' incentives are aligned with yours as well.
What if they are not aligned in a situation? Is that still beneficial to find out they are not aligned and then just move on?
Yeah, well, it's up to you, and every context is different, right? But
correct.
you can either actually slightly pivot and go for an is it a given or is it within your sphere of influence, right? If it's a given, then you have to make it work. But if it's within your sphere of influence, maybe you need to change the objective so that it does align.
That's very, very useful. Because the funny thing is, I actually forgot to mention about the 5 whys, so I'm really glad you actually mentioned around it. It's kind of related to the, I know it's kind of hinted around it, but we didn't mention around it. Because 5 why is kind of the first, I remember it was literally the first class in the business commerce majors early on, because they asked us to do a root cause analysis for something. And during, but now I actually find it is actually one of the most useful framework, because it gets you to the next level of the details. And sometimes the answer is on on the tongue of your mouth, because we don't ask that 5 why. Because when people tell you something, I have this problem, we try to solve this problem straight away. But as a product manager, regardless of system thinking or not system thinking, I actually think it's really important to have the skill set to go under the hood, exactly like what you say, to understand, okay, why you want to solve that particular problem? Okay, why that particular problem do you think is a problem? You're just basically going down, I think, force yourself to ask 5 why until you find the actual root cause of the problem. That's actually a really powerful thing to do there.
Yeah, until you get on the receiving end of a 5-year-old trying to ask you why, right? So
yeah, until the person kick you out, basically. But I feel like the most effective, then this is a shameless prompt there. Maybe the advice is start using the framework Kiet just mentioned before. I think that's actually probably the mutual advice we're giving to people there. All right, so that's a wrap.
I think we're at time.
Yeah. Oh, 100%. No, thanks so much, actually, everyone, for listening, and also thank Kiet for your time. Really enjoy the conversation today.
Yeah, likewise. We're going to deep dive in specifics of each layer in the coming weeks. So really looking forward to kind of nerding out a little bit more with everyone.
Yes, talking to you guys soon. But before we go away, we probably just want to mention we still have our Product Pals email address still open for any feedback and advice. So it will be the I believe it's productspals@gmail.com. Productspals@gmail.com.
We'll put a link in.
We'll put a link in, basically. We will read that. So yeah, looking forward to hear from you guys. See ya. Bye.
Have a great one. Bye.